Hey guys, this is Lucas from Better Coding Academy, and in this video I want to show you how to set up Jest and Enzyme for any React application that you want to test. So I've got a very simple one here. It's just really a form. So I've got a form. Let's say I type in my name, and then for example my email, I say lucas@example.com, and my favorite author, it's just a bunch of pre-filled names here, but we just pick any one of those and then click sign up. And then it will say sign up complete, and that's the whole form. It doesn't actually sign up anywhere, but this favorite author thing does actually load from an external API. So we're going to build all of this out. Well, actually, no, I'm going to show you what I've built, explain it through, and then I'm going to show you how to put the tests in for this particular application. So let's go and have a look at the code. It's just a very simple setup using Parcel. Inside of Parcel here, I've got the Jest command, but I'm not actually using that. That's kind of weird. But anyways, we've got index.js, we've got pretty simple stuff, just font, and then we include the sign up component. So the sign up component here is this one here, and you can see we're making use of styled components. This one at the moment just switches between sign up complete and then the form itself, so the two states that you saw just there. And the completed component just shows the tick and sign up complete, which you've seen before. And then inside of form, we've got the form here. This form here is made using React Hook Form. So that's the library that we'll be using here. And I'm going to show you kind of the nuances surrounding testing React Hook Form using Jest and Enzyme. So I'll go into detail on that for a little bit. We've got just the basic styles here. We've got the form down here. We've got some validation here just to make sure that they're all required. So for example, you see you can't click sign up here unless you type in everything. So this one here like that. This one here also has to be an email address, but that's just using type equals email on that one there. So we have these three here. We've got the label text, inputs, full name, email, and this one is in favorite author. So favorite author is a subcomponent. So if we go into here, open up favorite author, you see we have the select here, which is this select here. We've got a select wrapper, which includes a drop down arrow. The drop down arrow is just the just to show this thing here. So really it doesn't add anything to the functionality. What you should focus on here instead is the use of the effect. So we do fetch authors, and then we set authors here, which allows them to show here, and then allows the user to pick one. So by default, obviously it's just value equals loading, but then we have other stuff that we do as well. On this one here, we have a forward ref. So the forward ref, we pass in the ref from the parent, and the reason we do that is so that we can get this part here working. So we use react.forwardRef in order to do that straight from React here, and then we also pass in the disabled prop, which is just is submitting. So if it is submitting, then we disable it and we don't let them change their selection. Now in terms of the submission process, we have this signup function. Now the signup function is from signup here, so just that file right there. And in this file here, this isn't actually a mock. This is just meant to be the actual signup, but obviously here we don't have an external API or something that we actually want to sign up to. So instead we just write this, which is just waiting 1 second, and then after that it just always succeeds. So instead we just have this here, we just wait 1 second, and after that it always resolves, it always succeeds, and we don't really worry about it from that point onwards. After we do that, we do push sign up, and push sign up is the on sign up prop, which then goes back into sign up. On sign up sets sign up complete to be true, and then that switches it to the completed state. So that's the whole application here, just a few components, and I'm going to show you how to test all of them. So the first thing we need to do is go into package.json, and we're going to add in our testing dependencies. So let's just Control-C this yarn watch thing here on the side, if you've got that there. This code here you can also find on my GitHub as well. I'll have a repository set up with both of the states, so the one without testing and the one with tests implemented. So you can pick either one. You can start from the previous one and then kind of add the tests in yourself, or you can just have the whole thing. It's totally up to you. So now we have Jest Enzyme demo here. Let's do yarn add, and let's add in these dependencies here. Firstly, we're going to add Jest, and then also Babel Jest, so that we can work with Babel configuration, all that kind of stuff. We're going to add in Enzyme, and then Enzyme adapter React 16. You need this in order to connect Enzyme to your version of React. I'm using React 16 as of this video. It's the latest version, so I do that. And then I also include Enzyme to JSON, and we'll be using this to generate a snapshot, and I'll show you what that means in a little bit of time. Oh, I accidentally added these as dependencies. These ones are meant to go as dev dependencies. I'm going to just paste those there. Babel Jest goes right there as well. And that should be fine, I think. So if I do yarn again, And then, so next time, basically the difference is that you just need to write yarn add -d, capital D there, and that will save them as dev dependencies. So that's what we need to do here. We generally want to include our dependencies for testing and all that kind of stuff as development, because they're not necessary to the actual running of our application. As such, we put them up here. I'm actually not sure why this one is here. Usually what I do is I either put all of these ones up there or all of the Babel ones here. I think that one should belong there as well. So we got Babel core, preset env, preset react, Babel Jest, enzyme adapter, JSON, and parcel. Yep, so this should be fine. So now let's do yarn again, just make sure that's up to date. Great. Okay, so now that we have these dependencies installed, what we're going to do is underneath the alias section here, let's add in a section called Jest. And inside of here, we're going to do setup files after env, and we're going to put square brackets for an array, and I'm going to write root dir src/setup tests.js. So this is quite important, and I'll show you what this does. Let's actually open up the Jest documentation, which is great for obviously learning more about Jest and understanding how this stuff works. But if you go into the docs here, and let's go down to configuring Jest, and let's go here to the side, click on setup files after env. You'll see that this is some stuff which is run after the test framework is installed in the environment. So after Jest and all of that is set up, then you can run some code prior to your tests are actually run. So this is quite important here, and I'll show you what this file here does. So we use a less than and greater than sign for root dir here, which basically refers to this directory here. But then we got src setup test, so we need to right click, new file, and create that file here. So setup tests.js, and inside of this file, we're going to write import enzyme from enzyme, and then import adapter from enzyme adapter React 16. So we're going to set up the adapter here so that enzyme can work with React 16. If you don't do this, then it will have its own set of problems. You have to do this. So we do enzyme.configure adapter new adapter like so. So once you have this written and this part here, it will connect this. So it will automatically run this before it does any of the tests, which is really important. So we have this file here. And the next thing we want to do is recommended by the enzyme to JSON docs. So let's actually go to npmjs.com /package /enzyme to JSON. So this is the one that we installed for making snapshots, and I'll explain more on that later. But for this one here, in order to use it, you have to add this line to your Jest configuration. So that's where I get this line here from. We're going to put a comma and paste that line there, and then just save that file. So now we have these two written. We have snapshot serializers and setup files after env. So let's start over here in our completed component, because this one is probably the easiest to test. Now, inside of our completed component, it's entirely static. There's no functionality whatsoever other than just showing a clean slate. So for something like this, all we need to do is a snapshot test. There's no real functionality we have to unit test. So what we're going to do is right click completed, and we're going to create a new file here, call it completed.test.js. So we have this file here, and inside of this file, we're going to write import shallow from enzyme. So we're going to include this. Shallow basically is one of the two ways that enzyme has for mounting components. There's the shallow mount and there's the full mount, which is used the mount keyword. So these kinds of mounting methods, they have their own kind of pros and cons, and they can be used in different ways. Basically, it mounts the whole structure down, however many layers there are. But for shallow, it only mounts the top layer. So then kind of the things you can test with it are kind of different. But generally, the advice is to use shallow wherever possible. However, some people prefer to use mount. So it really gets complicated, and it changes between different versions of enzyme as to what works and what doesn't. For example, in certain cases, hooks didn't work with shallow, only worked with mount, things like that. So really, it's just do your own research as of the time of watching this video and determine what is best for you. But for a component like this, with no kind of subcomponents, no special functionality, generally using shallow is the way to go. So we write that there, and we do import to JSON from enzyme to JSON like that, and then we do import React from React. We then do import completed from completed like that. So just this one here, we're going to import that component, and we're going to write a test. So the test here, the string basically defines the name of the test or what we're testing. So I'm going to call it matches snapshot. And then inside of here, we're going to put our test function, and we're going to do const wrapper equals shallow, and then we're going to mount completed like that. So we're going to mount that inside of this enzyme wrapper, and then we're going to do expect to JSON wrapper .to match snapshot. And that's it. That's all you have to do. The testing for this component is done. So now that we have this out of the way, inside of package.json, I already have this test Jest script. So now that you have that already, you can just go over here to the side, do yarn test, and just press enter, wait for that to run, and it should give us a pass. So you see it will say pass here, and then it says 1 snapshot written. So you'll notice here now we have a snapshots directory, and if we open that up, we have this file here. And if you have a look at it, it's kind of weird, but the syntax is actually just JavaScript. So we can change the language here to Babel JavaScript. And you see we basically have style div, tick, style div, span, and then sign up complete, and that kind of stuff. So basically the purpose of this snapshot is to have a look at your component and make sure it renders correctly. For example, if we were to go into completed.js, and let's just say that somehow the message here got changed, or it just rendered in a different way, then we might have, for example, a spelling mistake like sign up complete, or like someone deleted a letter or something like that. Then if we run yarn test, you'll notice what happens is it will give us an error. And the reason we have an error is because it's expecting this snapshot, but instead it gets sign up complete. So it doesn't match, therefore it gives us an error. Now, obviously, if your snapshots change in the future, all you need to do is just delete the snapshot directory, and then you can get it to recreate one. Say, for example, you wanted to change the message to sign up successful. Then if this is a change that you authorize, simply delete the snapshot and it will recreate it and give you a pass. So you just make sure it's correct, and then you can create that there. For example, here now it says sign up successful. So we're going to get rid of this snapshots directory, change this one back to complete. Completed, complete. So we're going to save that there and then do yarn test again, make sure we generate that snapshot, and our testing for this component is done. So now with this one out of the way, now let's have a look at the favorite author component. So let's go into favorite author here, create a new file, call it favoriteauthor.test.js. And inside of here, we're pretty much going to do the same thing as the other test, but with a few extra things. So let's have a look at favorite author first. And you'll notice that inside of here, we have a use effect, and the use effect fetches from fetch authors. So let's have a look at fetch authors actually, because I don't think we've looked at that. And this one just uses the JSON placeholder API. We can actually have a look at this one here. So if we open that up, you see it just gives us a list of users, but we use these as authors and we just take the names. This is what we have here, and we actually have to basically mock this. So the reason we want to mock it is because when we're running unit tests, we don't want any external things to affect whether our unit tests are true or false. We're purely testing our code. We don't want to depend upon, for example, whether or not a server endpoint is up online or not. So anything that kind of takes a network request, a database request, file system, anything like that, you generally want to mock. So you don't want it to actually perform that operation. So we're going to have to mock this file here. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's go into favoriteauthor.test.js. And what we're going to do is first write jest.mock, and we're going to write inside of here /_fetch authors. So the reason we write this is because inside of favorite author, that's where we fetch from. So basically that's where we include this file from. So /_fetch authors. So you just write that same path here and allows you to mock that file. So we're going to put this a little function here, and this function is called a factory. So the factory here basically says every time that you want to require /_fetch authors, instead of actually getting that file, we're going to return this instead. So we're going to return curly braces, and we're going to write __ES module true. So we need to do this because of a difference in the way that ES modules work versus CommonJS, which is the require standard. I won't get into too much detail here, but this is basically what you have to write. And then we're going to do default here, and we're going to make default an asynchronous function. So we do async like that, and it simply returns an array with 2 authors. So the ID is going to be 1, name is test author 1. And we're going to grab this, do it a second time, and do test author 2. So we have these 2 here. And you might be wondering, inside of fetch authors here, let's have a look at this one again. And you might be asking, well, Lucas, why did you only include the ID and the name? What about stuff like the username, email, address, all that kind of stuff? Well, actually, if you look at favorite author here, now I'm not saying this is the best way to do it, but because we don't have control over our external API, this one's just a JSON placeholder. And because inside of here, we're only using the ID and name, to me, it simply made more sense to just include ID and name. Now, you might disagree and you might want to include other stuff. That's totally up to you. But in our case here, we're only really using those 2. So I've decided to just put those 2 here. So we have this section here, which basically mocks this particular module. So now what we're going to do is go above here, and we're going to include a few things. So firstly, we're going to do import mount from Enzyme. So this is what I was talking about, is the other way that Enzyme does mounting. This one is a deep mount, not a shallow mount. And the reason we use that is because we want to test hooks. As of making this video, hooks don't work inside of shallow, so we have to use mount. That's basically what I was saying. You know, different versions, different issues. Check GitHub, check the issues page, and try to figure things out on your own. I'm sure you'll have your own set of problems when you're making this one. But yeah, you have to try to figure out how to fix those. So anyways, we're going to include these dependencies here. So this one's pretty standard. We've got mount, we've got to JSON, and we've got React. But we're going to include one now called act. So import curly braces act from React DOM /test utils. So this is pretty cool, and you can have a look at it online, and I'll also encourage you to check out the source code. It's pretty amazing as to how exactly this works. But basically what it does is it allows you to work with state changes inside of your components within the context of Enzyme. So this is pretty important. I'm not actually too certain on the implementation details, but you need to include this. So now we're going to write our test. So let's do test again. This one's going to be matches snapshot. But for this one here, instead of doing a shallow mount, we're going to do a deep mount. And the other thing I want you to notice is that we actually didn't import favorite author up here. And the reason we didn't do that is because we're going to do it inside of here. So we're going to do const favorite author is equal to require /favorite author like that .default. So this is equivalent to doing import favorite author from favorite author. And the reason we do this here is because we just mocked this one here. So when we require this, we want this to be required, but then we want this to use this mock here. So we first define the mock, and then we do that. So that's why we do this in this order. You technically don't have to do this for this particular situation. You could still write import up here, and it'll still move this to the very top and kind of figure things out. But I think this is a lot cleaner because it's quite obvious then, if you know what you're doing, that this one here first gets mocked and then this gets required. So anyways, we have this here inside of the test, and then we're going to do this. We're going to write let wrapper semicolon, and then we're going to go here. We're going to write await act async like that, and we're going to do wrapper is equal to mount favorite author like that. So you'll notice that we have await, we have act, we have async, and we have async here. So what's going on? Well, inside of our favorite author component, inside of the use effect, you'll notice that we do an asynchronous action. We use .then, this is a promise, fetch authors, if you have a look here, and we're obviously fetching using Axios, which returns a promise, it's async await, all that kind of stuff. So basically, by having this here, what we need to do in order to test this properly is we need to use await. In order to use await on act, we have to use async, and this one here has to be async as well. So we have to write this code here. So now underneath here, once we mount it and once this finishes, then what we do is we do wrapper.update. So this is something that is currently an issue as well, which is that whenever you use mount and you kind of have state changes, if you want to reflect those inside of like the wrapper JSON or like find sub components, sub elements, stuff like that, then you have to do wrapper.update. So we're going to do an update here, which basically updates the internal wrapper to match whatever changes have happened. In this case, in this stage here. And then we're going to do expect to JSON wrapper again, and then to match snapshot. So now with this out of the way, what we're going to do over here is we're going to write yarn test, which will run Jest, but then we're going to do -u, and we're going to write favorite author. So favorite author like that. Basically, this part here is a regular expression, favorite author there, and then that will mean that we only run this particular test. Now, it does seem like we've gotten an error. It says regenerator runtime is not defined. We need to open up Babel RC. And inside of here, it's actually a pretty simple change. Just put square brackets around here, comma, curly braces, and then we're gonna write double quotes, targets, double quotes again, node, and then current. So make sure that you're using a version of node.js that supports async await. I'm not exactly sure from which version it starts supporting it, but I think it's something around 8. I'm currently using a node version 12, I believe. So if you use version 12 or version 10, whatever the latest version is, it's probably going to be fine. So you just write that there, and then we're gonna go here, do the yarn test again, -u favorite author, which only runs that particular test. And it seems like we are getting an error. So the reason we're getting an error here is actually because when I actually wrote the original code, I was using React DOM version 16.8. So in a later version of React DOM, I'm not sure which version it was, I think it was 12, like 16.12 or something like that, they actually changed act to fix a particular issue, which was where it doesn't support asynchronous actions in the use effect hook. So basically, in order to fix that, all you have to do is upgrade your versions of React DOM, but we're gonna upgrade both React and React DOM anyways. So I'm gonna go here, just do yarn add React DOM, get those to the latest version. And now that we've done that, it should be on 16.12 or later. If yours isn't 16.12, if it's 17 something, or whenever you're watching this, you might come across certain issues. So just beware of that. And that applies to all my dependencies here as well. So just make sure that you can use the latest version if you want, but just understand that there may be certain issues that you have to work around. So let's try this test again. And this time it should work just fine. And there we go. We have a snapshot. And now let's have a look at this snapshot here. So inside of here, you'll notice we have our start div, our select here, and then we have these options. So we've got choose one, and we've got test author 1, test author 2. So this is actually working just fine because now this is actually using our mock, which is not this file here, but instead it's actually using our mock from here. So that's really cool, and the testing for this particular component is done. So now we've tested completed, and we've also tested favorite author. So now let's have a look at testing the form. So let's go over here, right click, new file, form.test.js. And inside of here, we're gonna do pretty much the same imports as before. So we're gonna mount Enzyme, and we're gonna do to.json from Enzyme to JSON here. We're gonna do import React from React, and then import act from react.test utils like that. So we have those 4 there. Before we continue, let's have a look at our form component. So if you have a look here, you'll notice our dependencies, we're including sign up and also favorite author. And then if we go down here, we've got our form, and then we're doing the on submit, which is kind of an external thing. So we kind of need to mock this. But there's actually one more thing here that we need to mock, and that thing is the favorite author component. So what you need to understand is that when we're using Enzyme here with Jest, what we're actually doing is we are writing unit tests. So we're writing unit tests, and that's really important to understand because unit tests operate on a per unit basis. Unit tests aren't designed to test your whole application in one go. It's meant to, for example, test a single component, which will be considered a unit, or maybe a single function or something like that. So you don't want it to be able to test favorite author. Instead, you actually want to mock favorite author away. So let's go up here, inside of form.test, what we're actually going to do is write jest.mock, and this time we're going to mock the whole of the favorite author component. So we're going to do this, and let's do return like this. ES module is going to be true, and then default is going to be react.forward.ref, and then we're going to write props ref like that, and then we're going to do return, and we're going to put it in a fake select. So this one's still going to be called a favorite author. I'm going to pass in the ref, obviously, in order to get it working, but we're just going to have one option here. So option value equals test author like that. And because it's the only option, it's chosen by default as well. So we have something like this, and we're just going to do test submits correctly. So this is the test we're going to be doing. Make this one async as well. And inside of here, we're going to write const, and then we're going to do handle complete mock is equal to jest.fn. So jest.fn is what we call a spy function, also known as a mock function, also known as a stub. So basically what this means is that it is a function which kind of knows how many times it was called, it knows which values it was called using. So it's just a really cool function which allows us to do debugging and do testing. So this is built into Jest, so you can just write that. And what we're going to do is create another one and call this one sign up API mock equals jest.fn. So we have both of these, and we're going to do another mock inside of here. This one we're going to call jest.doMock, and then sign up like that. And then it returns an object. ES module is going to be true, and default is sign up API mock. So if we have a look at the actual Jest website, we can actually tell what those do. So if we look at mock here, basically mocks a module with an auto mocked version, blah, blah, blah. But if we look at do mock, you'll see that it says, when using Babel Jest, cause to mock will automatically be hoisted to the top of the code block. So we use this method when we want to avoid that behavior. And the reason we want to avoid it in this case here is because we're actually using sign up API mock, and we're also going to use it later on in this test. So that's why we use do mock here, and we put it inside of here. So now that we have the favorite author mocked and also sign up, let's include the form. So we do const form equals require./form.default. And then underneath here, we're going to write let wrapper again, and we're going to do await act async like so. And inside of here, we're going to do wrapper equals mount form on complete equals curly braces handle complete mock. So before we continue any further, let's just do a quick console log of wrapper.html. So this I find to come in handy quite a fair bit when you're kind of doing testing and you're trying to set up mocks, just to make sure the mocks are working. So we're going to write this first, and now we're going to do a yarn test. This time we're going to do -- watch, which will automatically watch and rerun, and then -u form like so. So now after doing that, you see that we're testing two things actually, because we have form and favorite author. But anyways, it's broken. What we're gonna do is just change that real quick to specifically only run for form. So we can put a $sign at the end. Oops, my bad. So it's meant to be form.test like that, and that should work just fine. So it will run the single test, and you see that this one here is broken. Now you notice what it says is that the module factory of jest.mock is not allowed to reference any out of scope variables. So we can't access React from out here. I'm not sure on the specifics of why that is the case, but in order to fix this issue, all you have to do is write const react equals require react. So we just need to include it again within the mock here. And you see now we get a pass, and then it gives us the form. And inside of the form here, we've got test author. But you'll notice that we have this thing here which says an updated form inside of a test was not wrapped in act. However, we're wrapping everything, and we're also mocking out favorite author. So actually, when I was writing this project and putting it together, I kind of came across this issue and it bugged me for a long time. But you'll notice what happens is if I comment out all of these, the error disappears. So that error is gone. If I only leave one of them, I still get the error. I found that the issue comes specifically from this part here. So whenever you do a register like that, or any register in general with a ref, it breaks. So even if I just do like register like that, which without required true, still gives me that same issue. So this is something that I came across. There's also no solution as far as I know. However, this is not a game-breaking issue. The rest of the test still works fine. So in order to get around all this redness, the actual kind of way to mask this, to get around this issue, is let's just Control-C this real quick. And instead of writing jest, let's write jest -- silent. So now that will get rid of this error. So let's do yarn test again. This time it will do jest silent, watch, and you see it gets rid of that red monstrosity. So now we have this part here, and we have our amount, and you'll notice that our HTML output is also correct, but now it doesn't show that anymore, which is kind of annoying. So you kind of, I guess you win some, you lose some. So anyways, we've got our wrapper here, and what we're gonna do inside of this act whilst we're still here is we're going to do wrapper.find, and we're going to find the input. So inside of form here, we've got this import here, name equals full name. So we're going to do import name equals full name like that. Dot instance, which returns the actual like HTML instance. Dot value is equal to Lucas. So this is a specific way of doing it, which works for React Hook Form, because React Hook Form doesn't really do on change. Well, it does, but it's not the primary focus. So the focus is actually changing, or I guess getting the value of each import when you submit the form. So that's how we're going to do it for React Hook Form. Now, if you're doing your own kind of form setup, maybe with a different library they have on change, the way that you do this might have to change. You might have to use like .simulate instead of .instance.value. It really depends upon which library you're using and how they prefer to do it. But when you're using Enzyme, this is the kind of stuff you have to do. So anyways, import name equals full name is going to be Lucas. Email is going to be lucas@example.com. And obviously feel free to write whatever you want here. And we're going to do wrapper.find the form, and we're going to simulate a submit. So basically we're going to cause it to submit, which will then run handle submit, which will run all this kind of stuff. So we're going to do find to add in the values. And then remember our test author has already been chosen, and then we're going to submit. So now with these out of the way, let's have a look at our on submit. You'll notice we have email favorite author full name, and then it runs the signup function. Signup comes from /_signup, but we've mocked it here to use signup API mock. So what we can do here is really cool. We can do expect signup API mock .to have been called with. And you can actually look at all of these methods on the website here. If we look at expect, you'll see that all these methods are here on the side, and you can kind of check those out for yourself. But this one here basically says a mock function has been called with specific arguments. So we're going to do email lucas@example.com. Favorite author is going to be a test author, because that's the value of this select up here, this option there. And then we're going to do full name is just Lucas. So obviously notice that this one here matches there, this one here matches that, and this one here matches that one there. So all of these match, and the purpose of this test is just to make sure that the submit functionality actually works as expected. So anyways, we have that there. And we also need to do expect handle complete mock .to have been called. So what this means is that our form here, we actually do await sign up and then push sign up. So that's our on sign up event, also our prop here, which gets run and gets mocked by handle complete mock. So all of that should be working. It says push sign up is not a function. I wonder why that is the case. Oh, I wrote on complete here. This one here is meant to be on sign up. That's my bad. So on sign up there, and then, I mean, this one here, I guess we call handle sign up mock. There is a reason I wrote complete, and this was when I was doing the testing, but I'll explain that in more detail later on. So anyways, we have this test here, and you'll see that it's working properly. So it actually does all of this, and it works just fine. But then let's just say that our test was somehow broken. So let's just say that our email here, I don't know, we were trying to find email address, but that couldn't be found, or something like that, and you'll see that our test actually gives us an error. It says that we expected lucas@example.com, but instead we got undefined for email address. So anyways, it's really cool. It works really well. This is this part of the test here. However, we're also going to add a snapshot test just to make sure it renders properly. So let's go underneath, add another test here. This one's going to be a matches snapshot like that. Const form equals require /form.default. Honestly, it's the same stuff as this up here. So we can just grab that section here, paste that here. But we actually don't need this on sign up because we're just doing a snapshot, so we don't need to worry about that. We still wrap it in the async thing to get it working. And then we do expect to JSON wrapper .to match snapshot like that. So let's do that there, and you see we have one snapshot written. We can have a look at this one here. We've got full name, we've got that there, the email address, this one here, and we've got favorite author, and then this one's still mocked, is our test author inside of there like that. So this is really good, and that's the testing for the form component done. So now we've tested form, we've tested completed, and we've tested favorite author. However, there's one component left to test, and that one is sign up. Now, how do we test this sign up component? Well, it basically switches between completed and form. And now, given the way that this one's actually currently being written, it's not actually that easy to test because this component in general is designed in a way which is kind of quote unquote anti-testing. So we're going to go here and we're going to write const sign up switcher. So we're actually going to create another component. This one takes in two props, completed and incomplete like that. And then inside of here, we're going to do const is completed, set is completed equals use state false, so by default it's not completed. And then if it is completed, then we show the completed component. Otherwise we do incomplete, oncomplete is equal to set is completed to be true. So basically it's kind of similar to what we have down here, but instead we have it inside of a sign up switcher and we make sign up a lot simpler. So instead of doing this part here, we're just going to do sign up switcher and then completed equals the completed component. So from up here, and then incomplete is going to be form. So now that we've done this, we get rid of this line here. Let's just control C this so we don't run that test again. And then now what we're going to do is we are going to go into the form component, and you'll notice here that we're using onComplete for the incomplete here. So inside of form, instead of doing on sign up, we're going to do onComplete. And instead of push sign up, we're going to do push complete. So make sure you change that prop. The reason we use onComplete now and not on sign up is I guess just to make this a little bit more generic. In the future, you might consider moving this out if this is something you want to do. But for our sake here, we can just leave it inside of here. That's not really an issue. So now let's first do yarn watch, make sure our component still looks just fine. So let's have a look at that. Localhost 1234. Make sure this one runs. Great, so it seems to be fine. Lucas@gmail.com, doesn't matter. And then click sign up and wait a couple seconds and it goes there. See, that seems to be fine. But we're doing testing here, so we don't actually want to just say it seems to be fine. You want to run tests when you make a change to make sure that the tests still pass. So the idea is that if you have good testing, then you can tell when your stuff is working properly because it will let you know and it will error if something's gone wrong. So anyways, what we're going to do now is actually our form test has actually broken because you know that now we don't use on sign up. So I'm going to prove that to you by doing yarn test. I'm going to do -u again, form.test like that. And let's just have a look. You see that we get an error because push complete is not a function, blah, 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 the test has failed. So now what we're going to do is go inside of here. Instead of doing on sign up, we're going to do on complete. And then instead of that, we're going to do handle complete mock. So that's why I had that before. Obviously I'm looking at the code I wrote, but I completely forgot that interaction. So that's how that's meant to work. So anyways, now let's do this one again. Make sure that's running properly. And our tests have passed. So there you go, this is fine. So now let's go back into sign up here and we have sign up switcher and we have sign up. So let's go into sign up here, new file, we're gonna call this one signup.test.js. And actually for this component here, what we're gonna do is I'm going to grab this one here, and we're going to make this one export const signup switcher, because what we're actually going to do is we're not going to test this component because that's kind of pointless, but we're going to test this component here. So our signup switcher we're going to test. Firstly, let's do import curly braces mount from Enzyme, import React from React, and then import curly braces act from React DOM /test utils, like that. Pretty standard stuff. And we're going to import curly braces signup switcher from /signup. We don't need to mock anything here, so we don't need to kind of put it inside and do require and all that kind of stuff. We're going to do const completed is equal to, and we're actually going to create two components here. These are kind of mocks, they're not really. We just kind of pass them in as props and make sure that they work. So we're going to have a completed component and also an incomplete component, like that. And we're going to do a test. So properly switches between two states, because this is the main functionality of this component, the signup switcher. So that's what we're going to test here. We're going to do const wrapper equals mount, signup switcher, completed is equal to completed, incomplete is equal to incomplete. And the reason that we use mount here is because we actually want to have information on these subcomponents there. And also because we are using state, and state doesn't work unless you use mount. So that is what we're doing here. Expect wrapper.find incomplete.length.toBe1. So this is kind of weird, but basically what we're doing is we've rendered signup switcher, and by default we expect there to be one incomplete. And we also expect there to be 0 completed. So we have 0 completed, 1 incomplete at the start when nothing else has happened. But now we're going to do an act. And what we're going to do is we're going to do wrapper.find incomplete. And we're going to go into the props and we're going to run the onComplete function. So this is a way to run onComplete and therefore set is completed to be true. So now we run this function inside of an act, because whenever you have state updates, you need to put it inside of act. For example, you do a use state change, anything that causes set state or anything like that, you put it inside of act. And then we need to do wrapper.update. Remember I said before, Enzyme has its quirks. As of making this video, any state updates won't be reflected in the wrapper or in the children or in the structure unless you do wrapper.update. So we do that here, and then we grab this section here, we paste it down here, and we swap the numbers around, so 1 and 0. So basically, once you do this, you should have completed and no incomplete. So now this is done, let's do yarn test, but this time let's just test all of them. So we're going to run yarn test, and it's going to run all of our tests, and if everything goes well, all of them should pass. And there you go, you have all the tests passing, everything's working just fine. And for example, this is the beauty of testing, is that if in the future you are building something else, and for some reason like something breaks inside of your code, like for example inside of your component, let's just say you wrote complete here, but you kept this one as completed, or something like that. Even the smallest changes inside of your code base, it's always good practice to run your tests. And if you have proper testing set up, then what will happen is it will give you an error, and then it will tell you what the error is, and you can fix it from there. So it's really important to keep your tests up to date and also to properly reflect what your components are doing. So let's kind of recap on everything we did here. Let's start off with completed. The completed component is completely static, and because there's no dynamic functionality or anything like that, the best way to test it is simply using a single snapshot. So we just snapshot it, make sure it looks the same. Another way to do this in the future is considering like visual regression testing, where you kind of actually take a picture of the component and make sure it looks the same, for example, across different browsers, stuff like that. But for the sake of unit testing, this is as far as you need to go. So we do a shallow mount because we don't need to care about any child components, and that's what we need to do here. So that's this component's test. Let's have a look at our favorite author. So for favorite author here, we did a mock of fetch authors, and the reason for that is because we don't want external network requests. So we have to mock it. And then what we're doing here is we're just matching the snapshot once again. There's no real functionality here that we have to test. All we really have to test is make sure that the authors properly render on the page. So we do that using a snapshot. So now let's have a look at form. Now form is a little bit more complicated because form actually includes favorite author. Now because favorite author is a child of form, it's actually a good idea to mock it out and just keep it as something predictable for the time being, because we don't want to test both of the components, we just want to test form. So we mock out favorite author, and what we do is we're testing whether or not the form submits correctly, because that's the functionality we want to test here. We don't want to test, for example, whether the input is a certain length or whether internal state updates inside a React hook form are working. What we want to test is more user-based features, like whether the form submits correctly, stuff like that. So we also mock signup here to use signup API mock, which is a Jest spy. We also have that on handle complete mock. We add in the values, we do a submit, and then we make sure that it's been called with those values. And we also do a snapshot test because that's kind of important here as well. Just make sure all the text and everything is up to date. And then we do that, we mount it inside of await act async. The reason we use await and async here is because inside of our form, we have use form here. I'm not really sure on the specifics there, but I found that like basically you need to use await async whenever you have any asynchronous actions inside of the mount, or like inside of the actions there, you use await and async. And then for the sake of form here, for some reason that works better, I think. I don't know if you can remove it, but I don't really care. Anyways, it works. And then we do the snapshot here for that one there. And then finally for sign up, we have to actually refactor our component. So you see with testing is that when you do proper testing, it actually can reveal flaws in your component design and in the assumptions that you've made. So we have sign up switcher here, which we refactored out, we exported it, and we tested that inside of here. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial on how to set up Enzyme and Jest inside of your React application. And I hope you also enjoyed the tips and tricks that I gave in order to test properly. I hope that you will continue to do your own research and to further implement tests within whatever code that you're writing to make sure you have a robust and strong application. This has been Lucas from Better Coding Academy, and see you guys later.